I didn't expect the moment that changed my life to happen in a cramped campus laundry room at 2 a.m. half asleep, holding a basket of wrinkled clothes, trying not to make eye contact with anyone. But that's exactly where Fenton found me. At that point, I wasn't out. Not really. I had done the whole quiet acceptance thing in my own head, sure, but in real life? I kept everything tucked away, like it was something fragile that would fall apart if I exposed it. Or worse, something people would look at differently. So I kept things simple. Neutral. Safe. Which is why, when Fenton walked in that night, confident, relaxed, like he actually belonged in his own skin, it threw me off immediately. He glanced at me, then at the machine I was using, and smirked slightly. "Let me guess," he said, leaning against the counter. "You didn't separate colors and whites." I frowned. "I did." He raised an eyebrow, then pointed at the washer. "Then why is everything kind of pink?" I turned, opened the lid, and yeah, he was right. My white shirts had definitely taken on a questionable tint. "Great," I muttered. "Perfect." He laughed, not in a mean way. Just easy. Like he wasn't trying to impress anyone. "Relax," he said. "Happens to everyone at least once. Consider it a rite of passage." I huffed a small laugh despite myself. "Did it happen to you?" "Oh, worse," he said. "I turned all my clothes purple first semester. Walked around looking like I lost a bet for a week." That made me smile more than I expected. That was the thing about Fenton. He didn't push. Didn't pry. He just existed around you in a way that made things feel lighter. We ended up talking while the machines ran. Nothing deep at first, classes, professors, random campus complaints. The kind of conversation you don't think twice about. But I noticed things. Like how he held eye contact just a second longer than most people. How he didn't seem rushed to fill silence. How comfortable he was just being there. It was different from the guys I usually hung around. With them, everything felt like a performance. Who's funnier? Who's cooler? Who cares less? Fenton didn't play that game. At some point, he asked what I was studying. "Architecture," I said. "You?" "Psychology," he replied. Then, after a beat, "Which probably explains why I noticed things." I glanced at him. "Like what?" He shrugged, casual. "Like how you keep downplaying yourself every time you say something." I blinked. "I do not." "You do," he said, smiling slightly. "You say something, then immediately soften it. Like you're bracing for someone to disagree." I opened my mouth to argue, then stopped. Because he wasn't wrong. I laughed it off, though. "Okay, Freud. Maybe don't analyze me in a laundry room." "Fair," he said. "Bad lighting for it anyway." We both laughed, but something about that moment stuck with me. Because no one had ever noticed that before. Or at least, no one had said it out loud. When my clothes were done, I started gathering them quickly, suddenly aware of how late it was. "Well," I said, "thanks for the emotional breakdown and laundry advice." "Anytime," he replied. Then, more casually, "I'm usually around here at weird hours. If you ever need help not destroying your wardrobe again." I smirked. "I'll keep that in mind." I should have left it there. Just a random interaction. A funny story. But as I walked back to my dorm, something felt different. Lighter, maybe? Or just less guarded. And I hated how much I kept replaying the conversation in my head. Because it wasn't just what he said. It was how he made me feel. Seen, without making it a big deal. Which, honestly, scared me more than anything. Because if someone like Fenton could see through me that easily, what else could he figure out? And the truth was, I wasn't ready for anyone to know that part of me yet. Not even someone like him. Not even someone who made it feel okay. Looking back, that was the beginning of everything. I just didn't realize it yet. And I definitely didn't realize that Fenton would end up being the reason I finally stopped hiding from myself. But at the time, he was just the guy from the laundry room. the one who noticed too much. And somehow, made me want to be noticed anyway. After that night, I started seeing Fenton everywhere. Not in some dramatic, fate-driven way, just around. In the student cafe, usually sitting by the window with his laptop, headphones half on like he was listening to something but still aware of everything happening around him. In the hallway outside one of my lecture halls, leaning against the wall, scrolling through his phone. Once, even at the gym, which honestly threw me off the most. He didn't look like the type who cared about that kind of thing, but there he was, focused, steady, like everything he did had intention behind it. The first few times, we just exchanged quick nods. Small smiles. Normal. Safe. But then one afternoon, I walked into the cafe, spotted him immediately, and before I could even decide whether I wanted to say hi, he waved me over like it was the most natural thing in the world. No hesitation. No awkwardness. Just, hey, come sit. And for some reason, my chest tightened a little as I walked over. Gustav, right? He said, closing his laptop slightly. Yeah, I replied, setting my bag down. You remember? He gave me a look. Of course I remember. Something about the way he said it made it feel intentional. Not just polite. I sat across from him, trying to ignore the weird awareness settling in my chest again. What are you working on? I asked. Paper, he said. Something about identity development. I let out a small laugh. You're really leaning into the whole psychology thing, huh? He smirked. Occupational hazard. There was a brief pause, but it wasn't uncomfortable. That was the thing, I didn't feel the usual pressure to perform around him. Still, I caught myself overthinking anyway. Like where to look. How I was sitting. Whether I was coming off as awkward. You're doing it again, he said suddenly. I blinked. Doing what? Overthinking, he replied simply, taking a sip of his coffee. I shook my head. You can't just keep calling me out like that. Why not? He said, tilting his head slightly. I'm not wrong. I exhaled through a laugh, leaning back in my chair. You're kind of annoying, you know that? Yeah, he said, completely unfazed. I get that a lot. I smiled despite myself. And just like that, we slipped into conversation again. It became easy. Too easy. We started meeting up more after that. Not in a planned way at first, just coincidence that slowly stopped feeling like coincidence. We'd grab coffee. Study in the same space. Complain about professors. It built naturally, like neither of us was forcing it. But underneath all of that, there was something else growing. At least for me. Because the more time I spent around Fenton, the harder it became to ignore certain things. Like how I noticed the way his voice softened when he was being sincere. Or how his eyes lingered just a little longer when we were talking one-on-one. Or how he always seemed to get me, even when I didn't fully say what I meant. And yeah, I noticed how attractive he was too. I tried not to think about that part. Tried to keep it in the same lockbox I'd been using for years. But it was getting harder. Because this wasn't some random guy across the room anymore. This was Fenton. The guy who sat across from me for hours, talking about life like it wasn't something to be filtered. The guy who made everything feel a little more honest. And that scared me. More than anything. One evening, we ended up walking back from campus together after studying. It was late, quiet, the kind of calm that makes everything feel a little more real than usual. We were talking about something stupid at first. I don't even remember what. But then the conversation slowed. Not in a bad way. Just shifted. You ever feel like you're not really being yourself? Fenton asked suddenly. I glanced at him. What do you mean? He shrugged, hands in his pockets. Like you're editing things. Holding parts back. My stomach tightened slightly. Of course he'd ask something like that. I let out a quiet breath. I think everyone does that. Yeah, he said. But some people do it more than others. I didn't respond right away. Because I knew exactly what he meant. And I had a feeling he knew too. After a few steps, he spoke again, more carefully this time. You don't have to, you know. I frowned slightly. Have to what? Hide, he said simply. The word hit harder than I expected. I stopped walking for a second, then caught up with him. You don't even know what you're talking about, I said a little too quickly. He didn't argue. Didn't push. Just looked at me for a moment, like he was deciding something. Then he nodded. Okay. And changed the subject. Just like that. But the damage was done. Because now my heart was racing, and my thoughts were spiraling. Not because he accused me of anything. But because he didn't. Because he said it like it wasn't a big deal. Like whatever I was hiding wouldn't change how he saw me. And I didn't know what to do with that. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying that moment over and over again. You don't have to hide. It sounded simple. But for me, it wasn't. Because hiding wasn't just something I did. It was how I functioned. How I stayed safe. How I avoided questions I wasn't ready to answer. But now there was this one person who made it feel unnecessary. And that was terrifying. Because if I stopped hiding, then everything would change. And I didn't know if I was ready for that. I didn't realize it yet, but I was already starting to crack. And Fenton? He saw it. He just wasn't forcing it open. Not yet. I started avoiding him. Not in an obvious way. I still showed up to the cafe sometimes, still replied when he texted, but I kept things shorter. More surface level. Safer. Because after that conversation, being around Fenton felt different. He hadn't done anything wrong. If anything, he'd been too understanding. And that was the problem. Because now every time I looked at him, I had this lingering feeling that he already knew. Or at least, suspected. And I wasn't ready to confirm anything. A few days later, I was sitting in the cafe again, pretending to focus on my laptop. I hadn't seen him all day, which should have made me feel relieved. Instead, I kept glancing at the door. Which was annoying. I told myself it was just habit. That I was used to him being around. That it didn't mean anything. Right. Hey. I looked up, and there he was. Fenton. Standing there like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't been quietly pulling away. Hey. I replied, trying to sound normal. He studied me for a second. Not intensely. Just noticing. Then he sat down across from me. You've been busy, he said. It wasn't a question. I shrugged. Classes. Projects. He nodded slowly. Yeah. Same. A small silence settled between us. And for the first time since I'd met him, it felt a little awkward. I hated that. So, I said, forcing a casual tone, still analyzing people in public places? A faint smile tugged at his lips. Only the interesting ones. I rolled my eyes. Convenient answer. True answer, he corrected lightly. That familiar ease flickered back for a moment. But it didn't fully land. Not like before. And I think he felt that too. Because after a beat, he leaned back slightly and said quieter, Did I say something wrong the other night? There it was. Straight to the point. My chest tightened. No, I said quickly. Too quickly. It's fine. He didn't respond right away. Just watched me. And I could feel it, that same calm, steady attention that made it impossible to hide behind bullshit. Gustav, he said, not harsh, not confrontational, just clear. I exhaled, looking away. You didn't do anything, I admitted. I stopped. Because I didn't even know how to explain it without saying too much. He didn't interrupt. Didn't rush me. Just waited. And somehow that made it harder. I'm just not used to people. I hesitated, then forced it out. Seeing things like that. Like what? He asked gently. I let out a small, frustrated laugh. Exactly. That earned a quiet smile from him. But he didn't let it slide. You think I'm judging you, he said. It wasn't a question. I shook my head. No. That's the problem. He frowned slightly. How is that a problem? I looked at him then. Really looked. At how open his expression was. How unguarded. And it hit me all over again, how different he was from everyone else. You make it seem easy, I said. Like it's not a big deal. Because it isn't, he replied simply. I swallowed. It is to me. That hung in the air between us. And for the first time, I didn't try to take it back. Didn't soften it. Just let it sit there. Fenton nodded slowly. Okay, he said. No argument. No pushing. Just acceptance. And somehow, that hit even harder than anything else he could have said. We didn't talk about it after that. Not directly. But something shifted. Not in a bad way. Just more honest. I stopped pretending as much. Still wasn't fully open, but I wasn't shutting things down either. And Fenton? He met me exactly where I was. No pressure. No expectations. Just there. A week later, he invited me over. Just to hang out, he said. Nothing serious. I hesitated. Because being alone with him in his space felt like crossing some kind of line. But I said yes anyway. Which probably told me everything I needed to know. His apartment was simple. Clean, but lived in. A couple of books scattered around, a half-finished mug of coffee on the counter. It felt like him. Comfortable. Real. We started with something easy, watching a movie, making dumb comments, arguing about which scenes made no sense. At some point, we ended up sitting closer than I expected. Not touching. Just close. And I was hyper-aware of it. Of him. Of everything. My brain was running in circles, trying to act normal while simultaneously overanalyzing every small movement. You're doing it again, he murmured. I groaned quietly. Can you not? He laughed softly. And then, after a second, his tone shifted. Hey, he said. I glanced at him. He was already looking at me. Closer than before. Can I ask you something? He said. My heart picked up slightly. You're going to anyway. Probably, he admitted. Are you scared of what it means, or scared of what people will think? The question hit deeper than anything before. Because I didn't have a quick answer this time. I looked away, exhaling slowly. Both, I admitted. My voice was quieter now. More honest than I'd planned. Fenton didn't move. Didn't react dramatically. He just nodded. Yeah, he said softly. That makes sense. And then, after a moment, but those are two different things. I frowned slightly, looking back at him. How? He held my gaze. One is about you, he said. The other is about everyone else. I didn't say anything. Because I knew where this was going. And part of me wasn't ready to hear it. But another part. The part that had been slowly breaking open since that night in the laundry room. Was listening. Really listening. And for the first time. I didn't immediately shut it down. I wish I could say I had some big realization in that moment. Like everything suddenly clicked, and I just got it. But that's not how it worked. Instead, I just sat there, staring at Fenton, feeling like my chest was too tight and my thoughts were moving too fast. One is about you, he'd said. The other is about everyone else. It sounded simple. Too simple. And? I asked, quieter now. He leaned back slightly, giving me space, but his eyes stayed on me. And you can't figure out one if you're too busy worrying about the other. I let out a slow breath, rubbing the back of my neck. That's easy for you to say. Not really, he said. I glanced at him. For the first time since I'd met him, he hesitated. Just a little. I didn't always think like this, he added. That caught my attention. What do you mean? He looked down for a second, then back at me. I used to do the same thing, he said. Overthink everything. Filter myself depending on who I was around. I frowned slightly. You don't seem like that kind of person. He gave a small, almost amused smile. Yeah. That's kind of the point. There was something different in his tone now. Less effortless. More real. I just got tired of it, he continued. Tired of feeling like I was splitting myself into pieces just to make other people comfortable. His words landed heavier than I expected. Because that's exactly what it felt like. Splitting. Editing. Constantly adjusting. And what? I asked. You just stopped? He shrugged lightly. Not all at once. A small pause. But I stopped letting fear make the decisions. That stuck with me. More than anything else. We didn't talk much after that. Not because it was awkward, but because it didn't need more words. The movie kept playing in the background, but neither of us was really watching it anymore. At some point, our shoulders brushed. It was accidental. At least. I think it was. But neither of us moved away. And suddenly, everything felt louder. My heartbeat. My breathing. The space between us, barely there, but somehow overwhelming. I was hyper-aware of every little thing. The warmth of him next to me. The way his arm rested casually along the back of the couch. The fact that if I leaned just slightly. I shook the thought off immediately. No. Too much. Too fast. I shifted a little, putting some space between us. And for a second, I thought I saw something flicker across his face. Not hurt. Just understanding. Which almost made it worse. Hey, he said after a moment. I looked at him. You don't have to figure everything out tonight. I let out a quiet breath. Feels like I do. He shook his head slightly. You don't. You're allowed to take your time, Gustav. Something about the way he said my name. It grounded me. Pulled me out of my own head just enough to breathe again. I don't even know where to start, I admitted. And that was the most honest thing I'd said all night. Fenton didn't rush to answer. He thought about it. Actually thought. Start with what feels true, he said finally. I frowned. That's kind of vague. He smiled a little. Yeah. Because it's different for everyone. I looked down at my hands. Tried to sort through everything in my head. What felt true? That I liked being around him. That I felt more like myself when I was with him than I did with almost anyone else. That I noticed things about him I probably shouldn't. That part, I wasn't ready to say out loud. Not yet. But it was there. And for the first time, I didn't push it away immediately. I just acknowledged it. Quietly. Internally. And somehow, that felt like progress. It was late when I finally stood up to leave. Thanks for this, I said, gesturing vaguely. For overanalyzing your entire personality? He teased lightly. I huffed a small laugh. Yeah. That. He walked me to the door. And for a second, we just stood there. Close again. That same quiet tension settling in. Not uncomfortable. Just charged. Hey, he said. Yeah? I meant what I said. I held his gaze. I know. A pause. Then I added before I could stop myself. I just need time. He nodded immediately. No hesitation. Take it. No pressure. No expectations. Just steady. I swallowed, then gave a small nod. Okay. And then I left. The walk back to my dorm felt different. Like everything was just a little sharper. Clearer. Not because I had answers. But because I'd stopped running from the questions. And that was new. Unfamiliar. But not as terrifying as I thought it would be. Over the next few days, something shifted again. Subtly. I stopped avoiding him. Actually started seeking him out. Not constantly, but enough that it felt intentional. And every time we talked, it felt easier. Lighter. Like I wasn't carrying as much weight inside my own head. I still hadn't said it. Still hadn't labeled anything. But I wasn't pretending it didn't exist either. And that alone felt like a huge step. Then one night, everything changed again. Not because of something big. Not because of some dramatic moment. But because of something small. Simple. Real. And impossible to take back. It happened when I realized I didn't want to hide anymore. At least not from him. It wasn't some big, cinematic moment. No dramatic confession. No sudden, overwhelming realization. Just a quiet night. And one simple choice. We were back at his apartment again. At this point, it had kind of become our thing. Late nights, no real plans, just existing in the same space and talking about whatever came up. Or sometimes not talking at all. That night, it was one of those in-between moments. Music playing softly in the background. Lights low. Both of us sitting on the couch, closer than we used to be, but now it felt normal. Comfortable. Dangerously comfortable. I was telling him about something dumb that happened in class, half laughing, half complaining. And then he just stands there, I said, gesturing, like we're all supposed to magically understand what he wants from us. Fenton huffed a quiet laugh. Classic. Right? I shook my head. Like at least pretend you prepared. He glanced at me, smiling slightly. And then he didn't look away. Not immediately. Just held it. And something in my chest shifted. Again. God, I was starting to recognize that feeling now. That quiet pull. That awareness. And this time, I didn't ignore it. I didn't look away first. We just sat there for a second. Looking at each other. No jokes. No distractions. Just real. You're different lately, he said quietly. I swallowed. Different how? Less guarded, he replied. I let out a small breath. Yeah, I admitted. I guess I am. He studied me for a second, like he was deciding how to respond. Then he nodded, almost to himself. Good. That word landed softer than I expected. But it stayed. There was a pause. Not awkward. Just full. Like something was building underneath it. And I could feel it. That same edge I'd been dancing around for weeks. Only now, I wasn't stepping back from it. My heart was beating faster. My thoughts were louder. But underneath all of that, there was something else. Clarity. Or at least the beginning of it. I've been thinking, I said, my voice quieter now. Fenton didn't interrupt. Just gave me his full attention. Always did. About what you said, I continued. About figuring out what's actually about me. He nodded slightly. Yeah? I hesitated. Just for a second. Because I knew, once I said this out loud, there was no going back. No pretending. No hiding behind half-truths. And that scared me. It really did. But not enough to stop me anymore. I think I know, I said finally. His expression didn't change much. But I could see it, the way he focused just a little more. Okay, he said softly. I exhaled, looking down briefly before meeting his eyes again. It's not just about other people, I admitted. My voice felt steady. Surprisingly steady. It's me too. A small silence followed. Not heavy. Just real. And? He asked gently. I swallowed. This was it. I think. I started then stopped. God. Why was this so hard to say out loud? I let out a quiet, almost frustrated breath. Then forced myself to just say it. I think I've been lying to myself. There. It wasn't everything. But it was honest. And it felt like stepping off a ledge. Fenton didn't react immediately. Didn't rush to fill the space. He just let it sit. Let me sit in it. Which, somehow, made it easier to keep going. About what I feel, I added. My chest felt tight now. But not in a bad way. More like something that had been locked up for too long was finally getting air. "And what do you feel?" he asked. Quiet. Careful. Like he wasn't trying to push me, just giving me the space to say it. I looked at him. Really looked. At the way he was sitting there. Patient. Steady. Not expecting anything, but still fully there. And suddenly, the answer didn't feel as complicated as I'd made it out to be. "I feel." I hesitated, then shook my head slightly. "No. No overthinking. No filtering. Just the truth. I feel different when I'm with you." That was the first piece. And even saying that felt like a weight lifting. Fenton didn't move. Didn't interrupt. Just listened. So I kept going. "I don't feel like I have to pretend," I said. "Or edit myself all the time." My voice softened. "And I like that." Another pause. Then, quieter. "I like you?" There it was. Simple. Honest. Terrifying. And for a split second after I said it, everything felt completely still. Like the world just stopped. I couldn't read his expression right away. And my brain immediately started trying to fill in the silence with worst-case scenarios. Too much. Too soon. "You messed this up." "Hey!" His voice cut through everything, grounding me instantly. I looked at him. And what I saw wasn't surprise. Wasn't discomfort. It was something softer. Something real. "You don't have to look like you're about to pass out," he said gently. I let out a shaky breath, half laughing despite myself. "Yeah, well, this isn't exactly easy for me." "I know," he said. And the way he said it. God. He really did. A small silence settled again. But this time, it felt different. Lighter. Like something had shifted into place. Then, after a moment, he spoke again. "I like you too." Just like that. No build-up. No hesitation. And somehow, that made it hit even harder. I blinked. "You." "Yeah," he said, a faint smile forming. "I was kind of hoping you'd figure that out eventually." I let out a breath I didn't even realize I'd been holding. And suddenly, I was smiling. Actually smiling. Not forced. Not careful. Just real. "Wow," I muttered. "I really overcomplicated that." He laughed softly. "Yeah. You did." I rolled my eyes. "Shut up. Never." And just like that, the tension broke. But not in a way that made things disappear. In a way that made everything feel clearer. More solid. More honest. We didn't rush anything after that. Didn't jump into something dramatic. We just stayed there. Talking. Closer than before. Easier than before. At some point our hands brushed. And this time, neither of us pulled away. That night didn't magically solve everything. I still had things to figure out. Still had fears. Still had moments where my old instincts kicked in. But something fundamental had changed. Because for the first time, I wasn't hiding from myself anymore. And I wasn't doing it alone. And that was because of him. The weirdest part? Nothing exploded after that. No dramatic shift. No sudden, overwhelming change in how everything felt. If anything, things just became more honest. And somehow, that made everything feel bigger. The next morning, I woke up expecting to feel different. Panicked, maybe? Or overwhelmed. Instead, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying the night before. "I like you?" I actually said that. Out loud. And he said it back. I let out a slow breath, dragging a hand over my face. "Okay," I muttered to myself. So that happened. And for once, I didn't feel the urge to take it back. Of course, reality didn't just pause because I had a breakthrough. I still had classes. Still had people around me who saw me a certain way. Still had that voice in the back of my head asking, "What now?" I didn't have a full answer yet. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to pretending like nothing had changed. Later that day, I met Fenton outside one of the campus buildings. Same spot as usual. Same casual setup. But the moment I saw him, yeah, it felt different. Not awkward. Not heavy. Just aware. Like everything between us had a little more weight now. In a good way. Hey, he said, like always. Hey, I replied. We stood there for a second. He stepped a little closer. Not dramatic. Not obvious. Just enough that I noticed. You good? He asked. I nodded. Yeah. A small pause. Then I added, honest this time. Better than I expected. He smiled slightly. Good. And that was it. No big conversation about what we were. No pressure to define anything immediately. Just moving forward. Over the next couple of weeks, we fell into something new. Not a label. Not yet. But something real. We spent more time together. More intentional this time. Less accidental run-ins. More choosing to be around each other. And the more it happened, the more I noticed how much I'd changed. Not completely. But enough. I didn't second-guess every little thing I said around him anymore. Didn't filter myself as much. Didn't feel that constant pressure to hide. And yeah, there were moments where the old fear crept in. Like when we were around other people. Or when conversations got a little too close to something personal. But now, I didn't shut down completely. I just worked through it. And Fenton? He never pushed. But he never let me retreat completely either. He had this way of grounding me without making it obvious. Like one afternoon, we were sitting outside, and a group of guys from one of my classes walked by. I tensed automatically. Didn't even realize I was doing it. Until Fenton nudged my foot lightly with his. I glanced at him. He didn't say anything. Just looked at me, calm, steady. And for some reason, that was enough. I relaxed again. Just a little. But it mattered. The first time things shifted physically, it wasn't planned. Of course. Nothing with us ever really was. We were back at his place again. Talking like always. Except this time, there was less distance between us. Not just physically. Everything felt closer. At some point, the conversation faded. Not abruptly. Just naturally. And we were sitting there, looking at each other again. Like that night. Only this time. There was no confusion. No hesitation about what it meant. Just that same quiet pull. Stronger now. I felt it in my chest. In the way my breath slowed slightly. In the way I didn't look away. Fenton shifted a little closer. Slow. Deliberate. Giving me time. Giving me space to decide. And I didn't move back. Didn't overthink it. Didn't shut it down. I just stayed. And that was the answer. His hand brushed mine first. Light. Testing. And when I didn't pull away, he laced his fingers with mine. Simple. But it hit harder than anything else. Because it wasn't rushed. Wasn't uncertain. It was real. I exhaled slowly, my thumb brushing lightly against his without thinking. And for the first time, that kind of contact didn't feel terrifying. It felt right. We stayed like that for a moment. Just sitting there. Hands together. No rush to do anything more. Which somehow made everything feel even more intense. Then, quietly, "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. Yeah. And I meant it. He studied my face for a second. Like he was making sure. Then his gaze dropped briefly, to my lips. And back up again. That was all it took. My heart picked up. But I didn't panic. Didn't pull away. I just leaned in slightly. Not all the way. Just enough. And he met me there. Halfway. The kiss was soft. Careful. Like neither of us was trying to rush it. Just feeling it out. And yeah, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't some movie moment. But it felt real. And that mattered more. When we pulled back, neither of us said anything right away. We didn't need to. Because everything that needed to be said was already there. That night stayed with me. Not just because of what happened, but because of how it felt. Natural. Right. Like I wasn't forcing something that didn't fit. I wasn't fully there yet. Still had things to face. Still had people in my life who didn't know. Still had that part of me that hesitated. But now I had something solid to stand on. Something real. And for the first time, I wasn't just accepting myself in theory. I was actually starting to live it. And yeah, that was because of him. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not about me. Not about Fenton. Not about any of it. And for once, it wasn't because I was ashamed. It was because I wanted to understand it myself before I let anyone else into it. Which was new. Before everything I hid came from fear of being judged, misunderstood, labeled. Now, it felt more like something I wanted to protect. At least for a little while. Fenton didn't push me to tell anyone either. That was one of the things I appreciated most about him. He never treated this like a deadline. Like I had to reach some milestone to prove anything. We just kept going. Seeing each other. Spending time together. Letting things build naturally. And the more it did, the more I realized something I hadn't expected. I wasn't just getting used to him. I was getting used to myself. It showed up in small ways first. Like how I stopped correcting people when they made assumptions about me. Before, if someone even hinted at something, I'd shut it down immediately. Laugh it off. Redirect. Now, I just let it sit. Didn't confirm. Didn't deny. Just didn't panic. And that alone felt like progress. One afternoon, I was sitting with a couple of guys from my program. We were talking about random stuff, classes, internships, weekend plans. Normal. Safe. Then one of them started talking about dating. Man, I swear, he said, shaking his head. Girls here are either taken or impossible to read. The others laughed, chiming in with their own complaints. I stayed quiet at first. Usually, I'd just nod along. Throw in a generic comment. Blend in. But this time, I didn't feel like doing that. I don't know what shifted exactly. Maybe it was everything that had been building up over the past few weeks. Maybe it was just that I was tired of pretending in small ways. Either way, when they looked at me, waiting for my input, I just shrugged and said, I don't think I'm looking for girls right now. It wasn't a full statement. Not a big announcement. But it wasn't nothing either. There was a brief pause. Not dramatic. Just noticeable. One of them raised an eyebrow slightly. Oh yeah? I nodded, keeping my tone casual. Yeah. Just not really where my focus is. And that was it. No one pushed. No one made it weird. The conversation moved on. But inside? My heart was racing. Not from fear. From something else. Relief. Because I didn't shut it down. I didn't lie. I just let it be what it was. Later that day, I told Fenton. We were walking back from campus again, same as before. I kept it casual at first. Had an interesting moment today, I said. Oh? He replied. I told him what happened. Word for word. And when I finished, there was a small pause. He smiled. Not big. Not exaggerated. Just proud. See? He said. That wasn't so bad. I huffed a quiet laugh. My heart was about to explode. Yeah, he said. But you still did it. That stuck. Because he was right. I did. And it wasn't perfect. It wasn't some big, confident declaration. But it was real. And it was mine. We stopped walking at some point. Not intentionally. Just slowed down until we weren't moving anymore. I looked at him. And there was that feeling again. That steady, grounding presence. You know, I said, a few weeks ago, I wouldn't have even considered doing that. I know, he replied. I tilted my head slightly. You do? He nodded. Yeah. You were too busy trying to control everything. I rolled my eyes. You're never going to let that go, are you? Probably not, he said, smiling. I shook my head, but I was smiling too. Then, after a second, I added, Thanks. He frowned slightly. For what? For not pushing, I said. For just being there. His expression softened a little. I told you, he said. You had to get there yourself. Yeah, I admitted. But I don't think I would have, without you. That hung there for a second. Not heavy. Just honest. Fenton looked at me, really looked at me. And for once, I didn't feel exposed. I felt understood. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about everything that had changed. Not just the obvious stuff, but the smaller things. The way I thought. The way I reacted. The way I saw myself. And it hit me. This wasn't just about liking him. Or even being with him. It was about what he'd helped me see. That I didn't have to keep fighting myself all the time. That I didn't have to earn the right to exist as I am. That I could just be. And for the first time in my life, that actually felt possible. I wasn't fully there yet. But I wasn't hiding anymore either. And that was more than I ever thought I'd have. And it all started with him. The guy in the laundry room. The one who noticed too much. And stayed anyway. The first time I actually said it out loud, to someone who mattered, wasn't planned. Of course. Nothing important ever seemed to be. It was a call with my mom. We didn't talk as often as we probably should have, but when we did, it was always the same rhythm. She'd ask about school. I'd downplay everything. She'd remind me to eat properly. I'd say I was normal, safe. But that night, something felt different. Maybe it was everything that had been building up. Or maybe I was just tired of keeping parts of my life separate. Either way, as we were talking, she asked, Are you seeing anyone? Simple question. I'd answered it 100 times before without thinking. Not really. Or, too busy. Or something vague enough to move on. But this time, I hesitated. And she noticed. You are, aren't you? She said, a small smile in her voice. I let out a quiet breath. My heart started picking up again, just like before. That same familiar tension. But underneath it? Something steadier. Something I didn't have a few weeks ago. Yeah, I said. There was a pause. Not long. Just enough. What's her name? She asked. And there it was. The moment. The line I'd avoided for so long. I could have dodged it. Redirected. Kept things easy. But instead, I thought about everything that had changed. About the way I felt when I was with Fenton. About how much lighter things had become since I stopped hiding. About how I didn't want to go back to that version of myself. And before I could overthink it, It's not a her, I said. Silence. Real silence this time. And for a split second, doubt crept in. Too much. Too fast. You should have waited. Okay, my mom said. Just, okay. I blinked. Okay? Yeah, she said gently. Okay. My chest tightened, but not from panic. From relief. You don't sound surprised, I admitted. She let out a soft breath. Gustav. I know you. I laughed quietly. Yeah? Yeah, she said. Maybe not everything. But enough. There was no tension in her voice. No disappointment. Just warmth. And suddenly, everything I'd been bracing for didn't happen. I'm sorry if you felt like you couldn't tell me sooner, she added. That hit deeper than anything else. I just didn't know how, I admitted. That's okay, she said. You figured it out now. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Yeah, I said softly. I did. After we hung up, I just sat there for a while. Phone still in my hand. Mind quiet for once. Because that fear, that huge, looming fear I'd built up for years, it didn't match reality. At least not this time. And that changed something in me. Again. I told Fenton the next day. We were sitting in the same cafe where everything had started. Same window. Same kind of quiet afternoon. I told my mom, I said. He looked up immediately. Yeah? I nodded. And? I smiled. She was good about it. His shoulders relaxed slightly. Of course she was, he said. I raised an eyebrow. You sound very confident about that. He shrugged. You're hard not to be okay with. I rolled my eyes. That doesn't even make sense. It does in my head, he said. I laughed. And then, after a second, I couldn't have done it before, I admitted. He didn't ask what I meant. He knew. You did it now, he said. Yeah. A small pause. Then I added quieter. Because I'm not scared of it anymore. That was the truth. Not completely fearless. But not controlled by it either. And that made all the difference. We sat there for a while after that. Just talking. Like always. But now, there was nothing underneath it. No hidden tension. No part of me holding back. I wasn't filtering myself. I wasn't splitting myself into pieces depending on who I was with. I was just there. Fully. And it felt right. At some point, Fenton reached across the table and took my hand. Casual. Natural. Like it wasn't something to overthink. And for once, I didn't look around. Didn't pull back. Didn't panic. I just let it happen. And I smiled. If you told me a month ago that I'd be sitting there, like that, without overanalyzing every little thing, I wouldn't have believed you. Not even close. But now it felt normal. In the best way. I used to think accepting myself would be this big, dramatic moment. Like flipping a switch. But it wasn't. It was a series of small choices. Small moments. Small steps. And somehow, they added up. And yeah, a lot of that started because of him. Because Fenton saw something in me before I was ready to see it myself. And instead of forcing it, he just stayed. Patient. Steady. Real. I learned to accept myself because of him. Not because he changed me. But because he made it feel safe enough for me to finally stop hiding. And honestly, that changed everything.